We'll be getting started in about 1 minute. Okay, it is 1 o'clock, so we are going to get started. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Mary Pat O'Neill, and today is the second session of the Find Your Fit College Boot Camp. Today, we're going to be talking about completing your college applications. I'm mostly focusing on the Common Application. Uh, I apologize sincerely for yesterday's snafu. In my mind, for some reason, I thought the webinar was at noon. Thankfully, it was recorded, and everyone who registered should have received it. If you didn't receive it and you've checked your spam or junk mail and you still don't have it, please send Find Your Fit an email. It's findyourfit@lwsf.org. And I will send it to you along with anything else that you need. Uh, FYI, if you unsubscribe to the Lake Washington Schools Foundation emails, you won't receive anything. So make sure that you stay subscribed until at least after you've received everything from the boot camp. These sessions are being recorded. Yesterday's session was already sent out. Today's and tomorrow's, it'll probably be sent out within a week or so. Tomorrow is the 2 hour session, and it's going to be on writing college essays. After I'm completed with today's information, I will be available to answer any questions that you have, either from yesterday's session or today's session. If you haven't had the chance to listen to yesterday's session on how to create a college list, I encourage you to do so because these sessions build on one another. So unless you know where you're applying to college, you won't know how to complete your college applications because as with all things college, it depends on the colleges what they're going to ask you for. So, okay. So I just said this, but keep in mind that this is not a one size fits all process and it depends on the college. As a college counselor, my life would be so much easier if every school would just do everything the same, have the same deadlines, have the same requirements, have the same essay prompts, ask for the same letters of recommendation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They don't. And as seniors, most of you should be seniors, you will be wishing that same thing. So it's important just to know that there is a lot that goes into this. And as I said yesterday, everyone is different. So where your friends are applying to college doesn't mean that that's where you should be applying to college. We are all different human beings, and that is to be celebrated. I do want to stress the fact that while there's a lot of details to applying to college, it isn't rocket science. If it was, I wouldn't be able to help anybody with it. So, all right. So first of all, I'm going to spend some time here talking about the 5 possible things that a college will ask a student for on the college application. And I say possible because, as I said earlier, it really depends on the college. So I'm going to go through it all so that you understand, but this is where it's important that you have gathered your information, okay? And we will go through this. So first of all, there are different application platforms. As I said earlier, I'm primarily going to be talking about the Common Application, but there are other ones. And colleges choose. Sometimes colleges use multiple applications. The University of California has its own application platform. California state schools have their own application platform, and everybody does things differently. The Common App has over 1,000 colleges that use it, so that's why I am focusing on that. In the resources that have been sent out, I've included resources on how to complete the University of California system, the Cal State system. This is where the internet can be a great thing. There's lots of YouTube videos available. There are hotlines that you can call. So don't hesitate. Just don't wait till the day before the deadline. Okay, so once you have a college list, one of the things you should figure out, and it's easy to do, is what application platforms that specific college uses. As I said, the Common App is widely used. Sometimes colleges use multiple applications. Like the University of Washington does have its own application, but it also uses the Common App. In most cases, it's easier to use the Common Application platform if you're applying to multiple schools, but know that you don't have to. And colleges don't have a preference. And if it's not ethical for them to have a preference as to which application that a student uses. So, so figure it out. It'll tell you either on the website or, go to a school's website and it'll say which applications that they use. You can start the Common Application now. You can start the University of California system now. And I always tell students to start with the data section, which is called My Common App. It's not hard. It just takes a lot of time because they're asking you information such as where were you born? Where did your parents go to school? Do you have siblings? What high school do you attend? Things like that. And it can take 1 to 2 hours to complete this information. I recommend that you don't try to do it in one sitting. I think it can be overwhelming. So if you say, oh, I can commit 15 minutes a day, and you put on your favorite music, you set a timer, and then you work on it. And then when it's done, you hit save, and then you can go back to it the next day. And if you do that, I don't know, 5, 6 days in a row, you'll get it all done and it'll be fine. Some colleges do accept, as I said, multiple applications. There's the coalition application, there's the universal application. I've actually no one uses those anymore. But if they do offer multiple application platforms, you only pick one. And as I said, I would always pick the Common Application. Okay, so organization is really critical in applying to colleges. I'm big on encouraging students to control this process, but if there's any parents who are attending this is a good time for for some parental involvement because this can be really overwhelming to a high school student. And students, if you try to be really independent, you know, parents do like to be involved a little bit. And when you get a sense of everything that all the moving pieces that I will be talking about today, know that it might benefit you to have at least somebody checking some things over for you. All right. The first thing that is always going to be required, this one is never optional, is your high school transcript. This is an important piece of the college application. So you will need a copy of your unofficial high school transcript. This should be available to you on Skyward. It should be through the end of junior year. Now, in Washington State, our transcript, and Lake Washington in particular, but all schools, we use an unweighted GPA. There is a 4.0 scale. In Lake Washington, we don't have A minuses or A pluses. We just have A's, and then we go to B plus. But it's a 4.0 scale, and it is unweighted. So one of the questions you will be asked is, what is your cumulative GPA through the end of junior year? And you're going to write in that number whatever it says on your unofficial transcript. And then there are two boxes. One says, is this a weighted GPA or is it unweighted? You must say unweighted. What a weighted GPA means is honors courses, AP classes, IB classes, they weigh them heavier in the GPA calculation. So typically an AP class, if a student got an A, instead of it being a 4 in an unweighted GPA, it would be a 5. If you took an honors class, it's usually a 0.5 bump up. So instead of a B being a 3, it'd be a 3.5. So I say this not to freak you out, but we don't do that. And you have to report what is on your transcript. Now, again, depending on the college, you can ask colleges how they do this. Sometimes they will recalculate. Sometimes they say, oh no, okay, we understand that this student has an unweighted, and they all just have their own methodology if they choose to recalculate. They won't, whatever they do will not hurt you as an applicant. They're aware of the situation. And if you're not sure, you can always ask admissions how they handle things. And then we're going to talk about providing context. I say explanations here, but just know if, if you have circumstances, if you retook a course, have a replacement grade, they're both going to show up. You need to explain the situation, because colleges don't know. They have no clue. They would have to guess, and it's better that you just provide the information. So this is a screenshot. This is from last year's Common App, but it just the colors are a little bit different now. Anyways, there is a courses and grades section. And depending on the colleges that you have added to your college list or to your common application, it will say, here is a list of your current colleges that require courses and grades. And it says required, and Loyola Marymount, University of Oregon, then not used, American University, Baylor, blah, blah, blah. What that means, where it is required, those are colleges that want you to self-report your high school transcript. And again, this is time consuming, and you have to be very careful that you do it accurately. You have to put in what exactly, the name of the course, the credits that you got, the grade. I once had a student who attended a school in Lake Washington, and they gave themselves A pluses. Well, there are no A pluses in Lake Washington School District. So again, you report it. The where it says not used, those are schools that are going to request an official transcript from your high school counselor. I will be sending out an additional resource that I found. It's actually created by Eastlake High School, and it's beautiful, and it gives really good examples of how to do this. Also, for those of you who may have taken high school classes in middle school, this could be Algebra 1, geometry, maybe foreign language, you will list those classes. When it says self-reported transcript, it says 9th grade classes, 10th grade classes, 11th grade classes. Typically, students don't have 12th grade classes to report grades on because it hasn't happened yet. But then after that, it says other courses, and you can see it says, do you have any other courses on your transcript with grades? This may include middle school, post 12th grade, etc. So this is where any of those classes would go into. And regarding 12th grade courses, part of the Common App will ask you, what classes are you taking senior year? And so you will list them. Obviously, you do not have grades yet because you haven't completed them. If something happens and you change your courses, let's say you signed up for, I don't know, AP Literature, and you took it first semester, and then you're like, I'm tired of this. I just want to go to 12th grade regular English. You need to notify them of any changes that you make to your transcript, because whatever college you choose to go to, they're going to get your final transcript, and they don't like surprises. So whatever you tell them, they're going to hold you to. Now, not to complicate all this about the self-reported transcript, but there are some colleges that require students to submit what's called a STARS report, and it stands for Self-Reported Academic Record. It's basically the self-reported transcript section of the Common App, but it's through a different website. When I send out the resource that gives really good examples on how to self-report, I'll include a list of that was through August 1st of this year of colleges that require the STARS report, like NYU requires it, and Penn State, Baylor, there's a couple schools like that. So, all right. So typically, when a college is looking at your transcript, they're going to look at the grades from 9th grade through 11th grade. And as I said, I'm mostly focusing on the Common App. But just so you know, the University of California and Cal State, they do things differently. They have what's known as an A through G system. And again, I'm sending the resources on all this. University of California and Cal State, they use 10th and 11th grade grades, your grades from the classes in 10th grade and 11th grade to calculate your GPA. Now, they see your 9th grade classes and they see your grades, but they don't use it to calculate GPA because the UCs kind of figure, yeah, you're a ninth grader and you're figuring things out. So just know that the exception, and as I said, this is why it gets so confusing. Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, they do use ninth grade grades to calculate GPA. And I'm not an expert in Canadian schools at all, but they look basically at uh, the classes taken junior year, senior year. So everybody does things differently. This is what I was talking about with the University of California A through G courses. If you're applying to the UCs, you'll hear that term a lot, A through G. So the A is the history and social science, B is English, C is math, etc. So classes that do not fall under A through G, like PE classes, um, they would actually go in a different spot on the application. Now, if you are a running start student, even though you may have been a running start student as a junior and you're continuing as a senior and you have college credits, you still apply as a freshman, okay? Even though you have college credits. And then after you are accepted and enroll at one college, then that college will determine you might be a sophomore, you might be starting as a junior. Again, it depends as to what credits that they're going to accept from you, but you apply as a freshman, not as a transfer student. And as I said earlier, senior year grades count. I understand senioritis. It is real. I hope you all pick classes for your senior year that you're excited about because it can get really challenging. It can get challenging with all the college applications that are due in the fall. You're tired of high school, I get it, but your grades count. Now, if you've been a strong student, mostly getting A's and you get a couple B's, I'm not worried about that. But if you start going below that, just know some colleges, UW is known for this, that when they get a student's final transcript, if things have gone, they can say, oh, so sorry, we rescind our offer of admission. We no longer want you. So remember that those grades do count. Okay. The second thing is standardized test scores, and this would be your ACT scores or SAT scores. So for the class of 26, as of today, I mean, it's a wild, wild west lately. I swear things have been changing a lot. Currently, so many schools continue to be test optional. This includes all public universities in the state of Washington and California. In the state of Washington, standardized test scores are not used in admission. Your SAT or ACT score cannot deny you from, it's not going to hurt your admission chances at any of those schools. Colleges accept both. They don't have a preference. And even though this kind of doesn't really matter because you're all mostly seniors, but these tests are meant to measure what a typical junior in high school knows. Sometimes standardized test scores can be used in awarding merit scholarships to students. Um, I don't know. I don't know of any college. Some of the military academies might still require the ACT writing section. The SAT does not have a writing section anymore. Nobody uses it. If you're still planning to test and you're taking the ACT and you're wondering if you should take the writing section, no, don't waste your time there. But this is that organizational point that I was talking about. Pay attention to a college's testing policy. And what I mean by that, and we'll go a little bit more into this, some colleges allow students to self-report, which means you state what you got. Now, you have to prove it later on, but you can self-report them. Some colleges want to see official test scores, which means these are sent from the testing agency, whether it be College Board for the SAT or the ACT for the ACT. They want official test scores, and there's usually a deadline where you need to have them in by. For example, like the University of Michigan has a November 1st deadline. And if a student uh, was, if a school wanted official test scores, like at the University of Michigan, they used to, I can't remember now if they want official or not anymore, but when they did, those test scores had to be received by that deadline, by the November 1st deadline. And if they weren't, the student was out of luck because they missed that deadline because that was a requirement. And surprisingly, official test scores, even in today's day and age, are not done instantaneously where you push a button and they show up at the college. It takes 1 to 2 weeks for them to show up. It costs money to send the scores and all that. So just make sure, again, that you're organized. You have a lovely Excel spreadsheet where you're keeping track of what every school wants. And know that the list of schools that require the ACT or SAT, it is constantly changing. So with the whole test optional part, which this all began with the pandemic back in 2020, people would say, well, is a school really test optional? So one of the things, and you can ask admissions these questions. Sometimes now it's getting a little bit easier to find this information out, but you can ask a college, okay, you're test optional. What percentage of students who applied did not submit test scores? And they might say, oh, it was 50-50. 50% of the students submitted and 50% didn't. And then the next question you ask is, what percentage of admitted students submitted test scores? And if they say, oh, it was the same, it was 50-50. Or, oh, actually, it was of the admitted students, 30% submitted test scores and 70% didn't. Okay, well, that's obviously a school that is truly test optional, or the 50-50. Yeah, they are test optional. But if they say, oh, 80% of admitted students submitted test scores and 20% didn't, that is a school that prefers standardized testing. And again, you can ask admissions these questions. And so these are just some of my thoughts about standardized testing because I know everybody worries about this. If a school states that it is test optional and it's not highly selective, which in my book would be it accepts, I don't know, let's say 40% of the students or more, I wouldn't worry about testing if you don't think your scores are strong. For more selective schools or programs, and this can be like computer science or engineering or nursing or things like that, I would submit test scores if possible, especially if they're strong. And people always say, what is a strong test score? It depends. Like at the University of Washington, according to their website, a 1400 on the SAT or a 31 on the ACT, they consider that to be a strong score. But if you're applying to Stanford, a 1400 isn't a strong score. That's just the reality. And you can look, yesterday I talked about the different resources, College Board, college data. That type of information is available. You can see, and you're in a perfect world, your goal is to submit your scores in a test optional situation where your scores land in the 50th percentile of admitted students. Colleges typically have this information on their website, in addition to College Board and college data and other places like that. If it's a highly selective school and there's their their 50th percentile is like, oh, 1500 to 6, like it's that 99th percentile of test scores, and you got like a 1470, I would submit. Like that's not going to help you or hurt you, I mean. So you kind of have to make a decision. Now, what can get tricky with this, and that's why I want you to think about the Common Application. It is a platform, okay? And you can modify it as you need it. So let's say you have 10 schools you're applying to that use the Common Application, and you have, I don't know, let's say you got a 1390 on your SAT. Good for you. That's a good score. But you do your research and you say, okay, 6 of my schools, that 1390, it looks awesome. I'm going to submit those. But for 4 of the schools, it's not that strong. And so you can self-report or submit, whatever it is they require. You can submit that 1390 to those 6 schools. And then for the other 4, you can remove your scores and say, no, I don't want to share my scores. So just know it's a very flexible process. And as I said, if you are submitting test scores, pay attention to what their requirements are, and I will show you where you can find that easily. With all this, I talked about grade inflation yesterday. And that's why some colleges, some of the more selective schools, like Caltech and things like that, they may require students to report their AP scores. A school like UW, they say we do not use AP scores in admissions. It's not part of the admission process. So again, don't hesitate to ask colleges as to what their policy is. They're always happy to answer questions. So this is what I was talking about. This is from the Common App, and it says, in addition to sending official scores as required by colleges, do you wish to self-report any of the following? An ACT, SAT, subject test, they don't do those anymore, AP, IB, etc. And you can say yes. And then the next part says, okay, tell us what tests you want to submit. So I talked a little bit about this yesterday with the Seattle high school market. So many students are such high achieving students. They get really good grades. They've taken lots of classes of rigor. They have strong standardized test scores. But just a reminder that that doesn't guarantee anything. There's a lot of strong students. And I showed you this slide yesterday too. Again, just reminding you that, you know, at Duke, 41,000 students applied last year and 38,000 were rejected. UPenn, 59,000 applied and 55,000 were rejected. And the majority of these students are all very strong students. They have the data points that we talk about. So what's another thing that a college is going to ask you about? They're going to ask you about your activities in high school. So there is a high school activity section of the Common Application. And these are possible categories that you might have activities in. You don't need to have them all. You can do things within your high school. You can do things within your community. You can be involved with a sport. You can do things through a religious organization. Colleges do differentiate between an extracurricular activity and a volunteer activity. So an extracurricular activity might be, oh, I play soccer. My volunteer activity might be that I coach a soccer team, okay? You can have jobs. Jobs are great. You can have hobbies and special interests. I've had students who, write music or write screenplays or build Tesla coils in their backyard, in their garage, type thing. So they just want to know, when you're not in school and you're not doing homework, how is your time spent? If a lot of it is spent playing video games, you don't need to include that unless you're creating the video games. And some students have family responsibilities, which I'll go into a little greater detail in a few minutes. So what they want to know with these different activities, the hours per week and the weeks per year that you have done this activity. This activity list begins in ninth grade. And ninth grade technically started the day eighth grade was over. So the summer before ninth grade counts too. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, that was 3 years ago and I can't remember anything, might be a good time to talk to your parents or people like that and try to remember all the different things that you did. And this is how it looks on the Common App, how you complete it. They say, do you have any activities you wish to report? Yes. And then, so one of the things if you see, it says, please list your activities in the order of importance to you. Okay. Now you can have up to 10 activities. If you only have 2 or 3, awesome. Okay. That's fine. You do not need to have 10. I've had students create things like going on vacation or going to the gym, or reading a book. I mean, those don't really count as, that's not what they're looking at. And keep in mind, human nature is they're going to focus just on, they read these really, really quickly. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But they're really going to focus on the first couple ones. That's where their attention is going to be. So there's a different type. What was your position? What was the name of the organization? And if it's something that you did by yourself, you can just say self. Describe this activity, including what you accomplished or any recognition received, and you have 150 characters, not words, 150 characters. So keep in mind, you do not have to write in complete sentences. You can do bullet points, watch your character count. They want to know the grades you participated in. Was it ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade? If it's all of them, do them all. Timing of participation. Was it just during the school year? Was it during the summer, which is school break, or is it all year? And then here it goes, hours per week, weeks per year. I intend to participate in a similar activity in college. Okay, this is not a test or a trick question by any means. If you were to say, let's say you play soccer, okay, and you're like, yeah, I'd love to keep playing soccer, but you're like, I'm not being recruited for a soccer team at a college. I just would like to play for the physical activity and fun and all that stuff like that. And if you really want to play, say yes. And if you're like, oh gosh, I'm so sick and tired of soccer, I don't want anything to do with soccer, say no. It will not hurt anything. What happens is if you say yes, and you're accepted to a college, somebody from the intramural soccer league might reach out and go, "Hey, we saw you were admitted. We want you to know we would love to have you play soccer with us." That type of thing. Anyways, that's how you fill it out. And then if you, as I said, you can have up to 10 activities. So if you have one and that's it, great. But if you have more, then you hit add another activity and you just keep going on. I think it can be helpful for figuring this out is to do an index card for each activity that you're involved in and kind of write your notes down on it. And then you can rearrange them and think, okay, well, what really is the most important activities to me? This is something new that the Common App has added, and I actually really like this. It says responsibilities and circumstances. So every family is different. I'm a first generation student. My parents didn't go to college. My mom worked, my dad worked. Money was really tight in my family. And I was the only girl. I have four brothers, and I had a younger brother. And it was my responsibility to watch my little brother when my mom worked. And so they just ask, are there any responsibilities that you spend over the week, like interpreting or translating for family or household members? Providing transportation. I said taking care of younger family. If there are things that you are doing, because a lot of times these responsibilities mean you can't do other things. Or, if you commute 60 minutes or more to and from school, well, that can impact your ability to do things too. So just know that, think about your circumstances. And if you have circumstances, please let them know because they want to know that. And I'm glad that they've added that. So in the resources that I that was sent out, um, the college essay guy, he has got some wonderful resources. I'm not going to recreate the wheel. I just share his, but he has um, information or good resources on how to write your Common App activities. The University of California also has an activity list. It's different classes that aren't part of the A through G go onto this list and stuff like that. But here's some of the things that he says. Make sure you use action verbs. To save space, use lists and cut out extra words. Use variety, don't have extreme language. And what I like to think about when you're describing what you do, so as I said, there's your role, whatever it was. Think about, were there any problems that you solved through your participation in something? It could be, yes, I saw that it was, I was in I don't know, a coding club, and it was only 15% female and 85% male. And I decided that I wanted to balance that out. So I solved that problem. Was there anything that you learned? Maybe I learned that through doing, I don't know, let's see. Maybe I learned through being in DECA that I really want to be a financial analyst or something like that. Was there an impact that I made? Well, what does that mean? And you can ask your friends, you can ask the coach or advisor in a club and say, is there, I'm working on my college application. Can you think of any impact that I've made through my participation in this group? And they might say, oh my gosh, Mary Pat, you are so good at welcoming the new members when they're shy. You're really good at including them and engaging them. Well, if I'm a college, I would love to hear that about a student versus hearing that he went to practice 3 days a week and went to state. To me, learning more about the student is more important. And if you can apply it to other areas of your life, like being in whatever, I don't know, being the president of some club taught me a lot about leadership skills and how to apply them elsewhere. just try to think creatively, use your 150 characters wisely. But my thought on activities are, as I said earlier, the Seattle area is full of very, very strong high school students, and that's not to minimize anybody. There's just a lot of wonderful students. And in a world where rigor is common, high grades are common, standardized, high standardized test scores are common, how do you differentiate yourself? And I think activities can really make a difference. As we talked about yesterday, some colleges, many colleges, admit freshmen by major or use the student's major choice for an admission reason. They use that for admission. And having some experience in an area like computer science or healthcare or engineering or business, whatever, it can help prove that a student actually knows that this is what they want to do. More importantly, having some experience can help a student know whether or not this is what they really want to do. And I've said this for years, even prior to schools going test optional. I would much rather a student spend time on activities and encourage students to spend time on activities than trying to improve their standardized test score by, a few points or so. Okay. The next thing that they may or may not ask for are letters of recommendation. Now, in the Common App, there is the My Common Application, all the data section. Then there's a My Colleges section. And so you search, you add colleges to your list. It's pretty straightforward. And then for the colleges, it shows all the different things, like there's general information, there might be the questions or blah, blah, blah. But the thing that every college has is a tab that says recommenders and FERPA, okay? And FERPA is you cannot get access to the recommendation section without dealing with the FERPA. FERPA is just saying, I give up the right to read my letters of recommendation. I give up the right to send you my transcript. It has to come through the school. And the reason why, if students don't give up the right to this, colleges say, well, I don't really want to trust that transcript. I don't really want to trust that letter of rec because you might have altered it somehow. So you have to say, yes, I release my FERPA rights. And once you do it for one school, whatever school, you fill it out and say yes, then it applies to your entire common application. So you only have to do it once, but make sure that you do it. Okay, so letters of recommendation. There's different types. Some colleges do not do any letters of recommendation, do not accept any, others do. So you might be asked for a counselor recommendation. This is your school counselor. I realize in the public schools, our public school counselors have many, many students. Most students don't know their school counselor. These change regularly. Don't worry about it. You still have to invite the counselor. And if you know your counselor, that's even better. But don't worry about it. For most students, a counselor recommendation just basically says that a student attends a high school. This is their GPA. They don't have any disciplinary actions against them. It's kind of a vanilla type of a thing. But then they might ask for teacher recommendations, and the teachers must have taught the student in high school. Okay, have to have taught them in high school. And they tend to want core class teachers, English, the social studies, the science, the math, foreign language, that type of thing. Then some colleges that require teacher recommendations may allow outside recommenders, which is basically non-teachers. And I'll give you some examples. Like band teachers tend to be considered outside recommenders. Art teachers, again, tend to be, unless of course you're an art major, then that would be different, or a music major in college, then the band teacher would be different. So, okay. So as I said, FERPA, which stands for Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, you must release that, or else your transcript can't be sent, the letters of rec can't be sent. Colleges will not read your applications if you have not signed off on FERPA. So as I said, the teachers must have taught you in high school. Um, so if, again, it depends on where you're applying. University of Washington, no letters of rec. Washington State, no letters of rec. University of California, no letters of rec. Cal State, no letters of rec. Okay, so it depends. But then there are colleges that do want letters of rec. So you should find out if you need them. As a general rule, two is a good number. And if you haven't asked anybody yet, you won't want to wait too long after school starts to do that. Teachers do not have to write letters of recommendation. It is above and beyond their job description, and it is a lot of work for them to do. I want to stress that. Do not have an attitude with letters of rec. This is where being nice is going to pay off for you. So I'll show you a form there. So if you have not asked a teacher when school starts, again, give it some thought. Who knows? And everybody says, well, what teachers write? What teachers write? You know, a STEM and a humanities can be good. It can be two humanities. It can be, it's kind of, colleges tend to like different types of teachers in the sense of, oh, the humanities has a different thought process than a STEM class does. Like your brain has to work differently, and they kind of like to see that. As a general rule, I would tell you to ask the teachers who know you best. If you happen to have a teacher coming up in your senior year that maybe you had them as a freshman, awesome. Or if maybe you are having a teacher who knew you as part of a club at school, fabulous. Okay, because they probably know you a little bit differently. But you're going to want to ask them soon. You need to give them at least a month or more notice of the fact that you need one. And know that the most popular teachers may have been asked last year when you were a junior. But you ask them, you do not, I'm going to show you how to invite them. Do not invite anybody to do this unless you have asked them and they said, yes, I would love to write you a letter of recommendation. But you can say to them, what can I do to make this process as easy as possible for you? And again, they might say to you, oh, I have a form to fill out, which is great. I think seeing a copy of a student's high school activity list, that could be helpful so that they know more about you than just what they know in the classroom. But again, if somebody was asking me for a letter of rec and they came to me and said, Mrs. O'Neill, I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to write me one, and I know that these are challenging. Would it be helpful to you if maybe I came to meet with you either before or after school for 10 or 15 minutes so that we could have a conversation and you could ask me questions? I would, if I was writing one, I would love that so that I could look at your activity list and say, oh, well, tell me more about robotics or, whatever, because I can probably write a more personal letter of recommendation. So don't be afraid to do that. Again, be organized. Letters of rec are the part I would say that most students dislike in this process, and it is because it's out of your control. And again, if you haven't nailed down your letters of rec, make sure you do it as soon as school starts. This is the type of form they can have. Again, it depends, ask them, but like, you know, uh, just, what are three character, why are you asking me? What do you want to do in college? What are three characteristics to describe yourself? Blah, blah, blah. So how you invite a recommender, there's teacher recommenders, there's outside recommenders, there's counselor, but it's really straightforward. First of all, the most important thing is that you know their email address, make sure it's accurate. And then you say the subject, is it an English teacher? Is it a science teacher, math teacher, whatever, their name, et cetera, et cetera. And then you hit invite. And just so you know, the minute you hit that invite, the teacher will receive an email from the Common Application saying, Mary Pat O'Neill has invited you to write a letter of recommendation, which is why you want to talk to them before you hit that invite. Because if I got an invitation before a student asked me, I'd probably have a little bit of an attitude about it and might say, I never said that I would write one. So don't assume. Make sure you ask and you be nicely. So this is okay. So once you've invited, this is a school. Again, it's going to depend. For this particular school, it says one teacher recommendation is required, two is optional. 1 + 2 is 3. Do you have to do three? You don't have to. And again, this is where it depends on the college. If it is a college that has a higher acceptance rate, 50% or more, 40% or more, and I only wanted to do one, I'd say that's okay. But if it's a more selective school, um, I would in by selective I mean less than 25% acceptance rate. I would probably do the maximum because again, all things being equal, if you can have people saying nice things about you, why not? So in this particular case, the student, me, and again, this is just my sample account, um, asked three teachers, an English teacher, a science teacher, and a math teacher. Now, this is how you can tell the status of the letter of rec. So, Mary Pat O'Neill, my English teacher, it was submitted on August 14th, or actually, so I invited Mary Pat O'Neill. This is weird talking about myself. Mary Pat O'Neill was invited on August 3rd. She submitted it on the 14th of August. Bravo. What I would be doing, first day of school, second day of school, I'd be going in with a little cookie that I baked, maybe a little handwritten note and said, Mrs. O'Neill, thank you so much. I saw you submitted. That means the world to me. You're awesome. Have a great school year. Okay. Then we have Margaret O'Neill, who is my science teacher. Now, again, I invited on the 3rd. She started it on the 18th. So I can see that she opened it up. She started it. That's great. Again, it's only August. So maybe a month from now, I might go up if it's still saying started and going, oh, Mrs. O'Neill, I noticed that you started it. Thank you so much. I have a deadline of November 1st. I was curious, when do you think you're going to be able to get that in? And Margaret O'Neill might say, oh, I'll have it in by the end of September. And then you put a note on your calendar, whatever. Then Tim O'Neill, my math teacher, also was invited on August 3rd, but he has not started it. And so, again, you got to tread lightly. Don't be rude. Don't be bossy. Again, it's only August, but you're going to want to keep track of these. And if your math teacher says, oh yeah, I'm going to get these all done by October 15th, no worries. We have professional days or whatever. And then on the 18th, you notice he still hasn't started it. You're going to need to ask and follow up and that type of thing. Again, be kind, don't be mean. Worst case scenario, maybe you're going to have to get another teacher to write one if you need to. But that little, I don't even know what to call that shape, that little hat, 3/4 of an arrow type thing, you can hit that to reinvite the teacher, but don't do that in a way to annoy the teacher, okay? Like just be careful. But always thank the teachers, appreciate the teachers, let them know what the outcome of your college applications are. They put a lot of work into these, and I don't think students really appreciate it. But this is why students hate letters of rec. You have to follow up on them. Now, that was a school that would take 3 letters of rec. Well, again, thinking that this is a platform, the Common Application is a platform. Everything is gathered in here. So for this particular school, no teacher recommendations are even required, but they will allow one. Now, this school happens to be USC, which is very selective. I would make sure I submitted a letter of rec for a school that's selective. But the problem is I have 3, so 3 letters of rec are in the platform, and I can only send one. So if you see the assign button, so then if you say, yes, I want to assign, so then what happens? The 3 teacher names come up. And again, this can be challenging because technically you don't see your letters of rec. That's what FERP is all about. So you have to make the decision which teacher recommendation you think is going to be the strongest, which can be hard if you don't know because you can't see them. So anyways, then you will, for that particular school, you're going to decide, is it Tim O'Neill, Margaret O'Neill, Mary Pat O'Neill? Whose are you going to send? And then you assign it. There's also the other recommender, which again, it depends on the college. There are some schools that allow teacher recommendations, but do not allow other recommenders. This particular school does, okay? It says, and it shows what type of other recommenders. So an arts teacher, remember that's the band teacher or the arts, clergy, your coach. College access counselor, that is somebody who works with underserved populations to help them get admitted to college. An employer, okay, if you have a job or you babysit and you have a family. And then there's other. Other is very broad. It could be your grandmother if you wanted to. So again, I don't think I've ever seen a situation where other recommenders are required, but they're allowed. And again, for this particular school, two are allowed. Okay. Um, and again, it never hurts to have people say good things about you. So I know it's a little bit of work, but just know to do that. Then there is what's called an advisor. Okay. You don't have to have an advisor, but what an advisor is, it's somebody, I would say it's likely an adult, not your little brother or something, or your best friend, but it allows somebody to review your common application. They cannot change anything, they just see it. Okay, they see, so they can't submit for you or anything like that. Colleges do not see this part. They do not know if you have an advisor. You can have up to three. So again, you put in their name and email type thing. The important part, my face is kind of over this. If you see underneath, it says enable preview. If you don't enable the preview, what happens is the person you've listed as your advisor gets notification that you want them to review their common application. But because you haven't enabled the preview, they can't see anything. So then it requires them to go back and forth. So just make sure you enable the preview. It just gives them permission. And you can have up to three. And if underneath the name it says disable preview, that means you gave them permission. And then if you change your mind, you can disable it. But okay, then the college essay, which is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. But just so you know, not all schools require them. Schools that use the common application do not require them, even though they use the common application and everybody thinks of the common application as the common application essay and things like that. This is where the details of your activities can be so powerful. Remember I said you only have 150 characters to describe what you do? Well, in an essay, you can go in much greater detail. So this is why activities are so important. It is a very different style of writing than most of you are used to in high school. It's not AP Lang style. It's not creative writing. Again, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but it's conversational storytelling. Your goal is to tell a story that you are the only person in the world who can tell it. They are looking to know about a student's character and personal qualities. The essay needs to be about you. And for more details, we will deal with that tomorrow. So on the Common App, in that my college application section, the data section, there is the writing section. And again, we'll go into a little bit more detail tomorrow, but if you've put colleges on your list, you've added them to your list on the Common App, it'll show you, it says here is the current list of colleges on your dashboard and whether they require the personal essay. And you can see under required, there's a whole bunch of schools. I have a practice account. And then it says not required. This can be a little misleading. You'll see the University of Washington is on there. Whoops, Western Washington is on there. They both require personal statements. It's just, it goes into a different place in the application. So don't take this at face value. It may mean that it's not required, like University of Idaho, Washington State, they don't look at the personal statement, but others do. So just be careful. I mentioned the additional information section. This is an important section. It gives you 300 words. It's in the writing section. It's after the personal, where you put the personal statement. And it says, do you wish to provide details of circumstances or qualifications not reflected in the application? Your answer might be yes. Your answer might be no. If you say yes, you have up to 300 or 300 words to describe it. So what type of things might I want to provide other information on? If you have a replacement, if you took a class to replace a grade that you got, both of them are going to show up on your transcript. The only one that is used for GPA calculation is the higher grade, which is hopefully the replacement grade, but you need to explain the circumstances, okay? If you, uh, if you got a P credit instead of a letter credit, and there's a reason why you can explain that, explain it. If you were, I had a student that I worked with last year who, if I looked at their transcript, I never would have known this, but it was just through conversation. This student missed many, like more than 30 days of school due to illness in both their sophomore and junior year. And the transcript did not reflect that. And you might think, well, then why do you need to say it? Well, because that made that transcript look even more amazing, that the student was able to handle all that. So anything that you need to explain, if you go to one of the choice schools in our district, if you go to Tesla, if you go to ICS, if you go to Cambridge, I would flag it. Tesla, I usually have kids say something like, I attend a lottery-based choice STEM school in our district. It's a very rigorous curriculum, and I do not have much uh, choice in classes. That's all you got to say. And then because it's a flag. And same thing with ICS, and like just let them know that. Um, if you're doing running start, I would explain why I'm doing it. Okay, because they don't know. Why are you doing it? There's a multitude of reasons. All of you who are going to be seniors, I would absolutely put in here, and you attend Lake Washington schools, my school district switched to 6 periods for my senior year. End of story. Don't need to say anything else. That is out of your control. You had nothing to do with that decision, but they need to know that because if I'm a college and I don't understand the context of this, I'm going to see 7 periods, 7 periods, 7 periods, 6 periods. I might think, oh, that kid's taking it easy senior year. No, you're not. You don't have a choice. So explain things, all right? But don't make excuses. Don't whine. Just be matter of fact. These are not essays. This is not an essay. This is just explain the circumstances. Now, also new this year, they have a section called Challenges and Circumstances. This is replacing the were you impacted by COVID, which you still could be impacted by COVID. That's one of the choices now, instead of it just being all COVID. So um, I use the LA fires in January. Like if we were located in Los Angeles and your high school, your home was impacted by the fires, it might have done something that reflected in your grade. So if you have any special circumstances, mental health issues, whatever, this is where you can list them. I'm not going to go into any detail here, but just know that some majors may require that you submit a portfolio or that you audition, like maybe dance or music or architecture, or, art. Just know you may have to submit something and pay attention to that. So as I said, the Common Application really has tons and tons of information available. It's a really good resource. I'm using the University of Michigan as an example. So if I'm looking at the college information, I've added the University of Michigan to my Common Application, and you can see things like there's the deadlines. If I want to go to their website, if I want a virtual tour, etc., they give you all of that. Then they have the fees. It's $75 for an application. Remember I mentioned you can easily find a school's standardized test policy. This is where you can see it. There's a link, test policy information. You go there and they're going to tell you self-reported, do you need official scores, all that kind of stuff. Then they say, okay, we want a school report. Your final grades are required. One teacher recommendation is required, 3 optional. They will allow up to 2 optional other recommenders. They talk about portfolio requirements there for art and design, etc. And then there's a writing requirements, and it says, okay, the personal app or the Common App personal essays required. There's 2, blah, blah, blah. And so it gives you all this information. It makes it really streamlined, in my opinion. There is a really wonderful resource that was put out a couple years ago called the AXS Companion. And I heard that today it was updated for the new version of the Common App because for class of 26, it is a it looks a little different than some of the slides I might have shown you. The information hasn't changed really. Anyways, AXS Companion, if you have any questions like, oh, I can't remember what she said about FERPA or letters of rec or whatever, it's a great website. It's got little videos. Each video is like 2 minutes long, and they walk you through exactly how to do it. You can search by, whatever area it is that you need help on. So most college applications are due in November, which will be here before we know because we're almost to September, which is crazy to think about. I would say for most schools, the applications are going to be submitted between November and sometime in early January for the most part. There's some that have February 1st, but most are by January. So there's different college deadlines that you need to be aware of. So the first one, and before I go into these, it depends on the college. There are some colleges that can have multiple application deadline types, and then there's some colleges that simply have one, and that's it. And again, it depends on the college, and this is where you need to be organized and include that information in your spreadsheet. So early decision is probably one that you've heard a lot about. To the best of my knowledge, it's still going to be available this year. I think there were some lawsuits or something happening from the federal government, but as of today's date, it is still available. Anyways, early decision is the binding one. Okay, this is the one where, as I said yesterday, personally, I would never apply early decision to a school that I hadn't visited and seen what I think, how I feel, how I respond. Um, Also, this is one where, do your research and find out, talk about the budget part with your parents. Make sure that, if you don't get any, at whatever, if they offer you scholarship money, great, but if they don't, can you still afford it? Do all that kind of stuff. It's a contract. You have to sign it, your parents have to sign it, your school counselor has to sign it. It's very serious, and you can only apply to one school, early decision. FYI, nobody has to apply early decision. I sometimes think people think everybody applies to one school early decision. No, they don't, because that's a huge, huge decision. But if you do, just know it's binding. Early action is nice if you are a strong applicant and you are organized and you can submit your complete and solid, thoughtful college application by early action. Typically, it's like a November 1st or November 15th deadline. I would tell you to do it. The applicant pool is much smaller, and you will hear back much sooner. You'll typically hear either late December, mid-January, whether or not you've been admitted. It can take a lot of pressure off of a student. It's not binding. You still have till typically May 1st to make your decision. But as much as you can, I would use early action. Now, if you're a student where maybe you've struggled with your grades and your first semester grades are going to be important to you, to show colleges that, you're on track, you know what you're doing, then I probably wouldn't apply early action. Regular decision, there are some schools like the University of Washington, University of California, that's all they have is regular decision. One application deadline, and if you miss it, you got to wait. And then, and typically, like regular decision is a much bigger applicant pool. If a school offers early action or early decision and regular decision, the vast majority of the applicants are probably going to be in the regular decision pool. So it's just a bigger pool. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes a smaller pool can be better. And then there's what's known as rolling decision, which means that as a college receives the applications, they review them and make their admission decisions, and they just keep rolling along. So some of the schools that have rolling decisions, Washington State does rolling decisions, Arizona State does rolling decisions, and University of Portland does them. Anyways, it's nice because you're going to hear back relatively quickly, and it's just a big relief, like, oh, good, I know I've gotten into a college. And especially if you're interested in getting scholarship money from a school and it's rolling admissions, make sure that uh, submit earlier than later. So some schools have what's known as restricted early action or single choice early action. Stanford does this, Harvard does this, some of the very selective schools. It's non-binding, but make sure you read the details because every school that offers it has different rules and regulations as to what other schools a student is able to apply to. Typically, if you're doing restricted early action, you can't apply early action or early action at other private, sometimes public universities. Again, it depends on the school. So, as I said, just keep calm, stay organized. And what to do after you submit your applications, check your email. Okay, I know teens don't like checking email, but it is really important. Many colleges use portals to communicate with their applicants, and they're going to send you the link to the portal. And it's usually within 1 to 5 days of submitting an application, you should hear something from a college. If you haven't, you need to find out what's going on. Senior year grades count. Continue to take classes of rigor. Don't, sometimes kids will say, oh, now that I'm done with all that college applications, can I drop those AP classes? No, you cannot, unfortunately. And May 1st is college decision day in most cases. So you want to get all that in a row. Tomorrow, as I said, is we're going to be doing the how to write a college essay. This is a 2-hour session. It's longer. And now I'm going to open it up to questions. If you need to leave, but you still have questions, know that you can go to Find Your Fit at lwsf.org. Again, if you didn't get the recording from yesterday, email me and I will send it to you. How to create the college list is full of important information. So if there are any questions, I am happy to answer them now. So.